Ah, Nihilistic Snake. I remember you from my old days in the SEC, but I'm not going to hold anything you did then against you because, well, there's a lot of things you could hold against me from those days as well. Instead, I'm just here to judge one of your reviews, specifically your review of a SpongeBob episode. So, let's get this started. Well, that intro's a tad generic, but credit for not dragging it out. With that said, I can't help but wonder what the point of even having this intro is. Is it to hype the audience up? Well, if so, it's too short to effectively do that, unless you use a much more, for lack of a better word, striking music cue. And the bland red font you write your username in certainly doesn't help matters.
Here we are, finally taking on the subterranean Bab of Sponge. I was hoping to take care of this show until I was at least 10 reviews in, but I figured that'd be a bit too arbitrary, and that it's better to just say something when I think it needs to be said.
And now it's time to play a game called Count How Many Things Are Wrong in That Sentence.
I was hoping to take care of this show until
Garbling your words together, so that's one mistake.
I was at least 10 reviews in, but I figured that'd be a bit too arbitrary.
Arbitrary? Don't you mean arbitrary? That's two mistakes, and for the record, I don't know if Snake has a speech impediment or not that makes it hard for him to say words like arbitrary, but like I told the Sonic Shadow channel, if that's the case, I'd personally recommend using different words in these situations as opposed to just mispronouncing them. And that's coming from somebody who also does have a slight speech impediment, so don't think I'm unsympathetic.
And that it's better to just say something when I think it needs to be said.
And a small, clearly unplanned pause between the words something and when. That is 3 mistakes in the second sentence of this video.
Anyway, SpongeBob needs no introduction. It's easily the single most popular cartoon of the century so far. Even during its low point, people were still hearing and talking about it. And I'm sure long after its inevitable conclusion, its influence will remain as strong as ever. That said, I was still hesitant to go after this show. Not nearly as much as I am with Family Guy, but that's another story. Because I don't want to come off as all the other dumb fucks who take this show way more seriously than they need to.
You don't want to come off as them? Like, you don't want people to think you're those people themselves? What? Oh, also, this statement adds literally nothing to the video. We already knew you were hesitant to go after SpongeBob, hence why you said at the beginning that you arbitrarily decided originally that you were going to wait until after your 10th review to do so. So, what's the point of this second disclaimer about how hesitant you were?
So I'm going to try and go after the episodes that have been mostly left as they are. And this time, I'll be covering the Season 4 episode, All That Glitters, which is a rather notorious in its own right.
So you're going to go after the episodes that have been mostly left as they are, which I assume just means haven't been heavily covered, and your first choice is an episode that you call Notorious. I don't get you.
This episode starts out at the Krusty Krab where a customer orders a special item called a Master Krabby Patty.
What the fuck am I looking at? Did I accidentally put on Henry Kissinger's glasses before I started watching this review?
Dad, you shouldn't wear glasses that weren't prescribed for you.
Lisa, just because you're 10 feet tall doesn't mean you can tell me what to do.
I'm bored.
Now, Snake said in the description that this was primarily to avoid copyright ID, but why not mirror the footage, or make it black and white, or do something other than make it completely unrecognizable and unwatchable? He also linked to a version of this video that does not have this effect over the SpongeBob footage, which is what I'll be playing for the rest of this commentary, so you guys actually know what the fuck is going on.
Which apparently no one's ordered in forever. The mere announcement of this fact is enough to frighten the entire restaurant. Well, except Squidward anyway. SpongeBob tries to flip.
You stumbled over your words twice in the same sentence, less than 5 words apart, and didn't think to edit it? Really?
The thing, but it's a bit too heavy, and his spatula gets split in half. And we're treated to 40 seconds of SpongeBob crying about it. It's a bit amusing, but 40 seconds? Really, guys? I might sound like I'm nitpicking, but that's a longer time than it sounds.
First off, who exactly would call you complaining about this going on for too long nitpicking? But second off, you know there was more to that montage than just SpongeBob crying, right? In fact, 3 of the last 4 sections are very clearly attempts to tell jokes.
Go on.
Mind you, I didn't find any of those jokes particularly funny, but there's more than just SpongeBob crying for 40 seconds.
SpongeBob visits his spatula in the hospital, and we're shown a montage of all the memories SpongeBob has of him and Spat's good times to set to a song that is definitely not Can't Smile Without You. Wow, you'd think he'd take better care of a cooking tool by not using it as a back scratcher or sticking it under the couch. Kinda making me reconsider wanting to try Krabby Patty there, Sponge Boy me bab.
The point was to show how dependent SpongeBob is on Spat, not just regarding his use as a spatula, but also regarding just his day-to-day life. And as for your complaint that it's totally disgusting, there's a very simple solution. I don't know if you've heard of this, I assume SpongeBob has. It's called washing a utensil before using it.
Okay, hold the fuck up. You mean to tell me that he's willing to get into a sword fight with a pirate using Spat, meanwhile he has an emotional meltdown over it getting broken? Wouldn't he want to keep it in good condition then?
I thought you said you weren't going to take this too seriously. Oh, also, your point not only is a repeat of your last point, but still doesn't make any sense. The point of this montage, again, is to show how much SpongeBob and Spat have been through. This includes very hard times where it honestly would have made more sense for Spat to break, but he didn't, therefore making it all the more heartbreaking to SpongeBob that Spat broke quite literally on a mundane day at the Krusty Krab.
Like, I get that this particular part is supposed to come out of nowhere and the fight scene itself is pretty cool, but it does create a bit of a plot hole.
How? Because SpongeBob and his spatula got out unscathed in this situation, but didn't get out unscathed in a completely different situation?
Just saying. A doctor comes over and tells SpongeBob that he should give consideration to a replacement spatula.
Go home. Get some rest. We'll try to do everything we can.
Thank you, Doctor.
Oh, I'm not a doctor. I'm an actor researching for a role. Yes! Woohoo! I am so totally gonna get this part.
Okay, now I'm curious as to how many patients he faked out on all day. That malpractice lawsuit should be a fun one.
Ah yes, the malpractice lawsuits against this man for dressing up as a doctor, going into a hospital, not lying about being a doctor, and comforting people. I get it's a joke, but the joke doesn't make any sense.
SpongeBob despondently leaves the hospital and contemplates how he'll get a new spatula.
Replacement spatula? How could anything ever replace... Hey, look at that!
Well, he got over that fast.
Well, Tom, that's the joke!
He lays his eyes upon Lay's spatula and appears to be taking a liking to its design. However, he's still conflicted on whether or not he should actually buy it. But then he remembers the fake doctor's words.
I would give serious consideration to a replacement spatula.
I love how SpongeBob still heeds the guy's advice even after learning he isn't a real doctor.
It is a well-known fact that only medical doctors can give you advice over when you should buy a new spatula.
He gets to work and shows off Lay's spatula to Mr. Krabs and Squidward. However, his hopes are dashed when it's time for him to actually start making Krabby Patties, and Lay's spatula keeps avoiding the grill.
Spat, is there something wrong, pal?
I would not dare touch such slop as this, how you say, Krabby Patty. I am designed for the utmost in culinary cuisine, no less!
You're a fucking spatula! Your main purpose is to flip beef on a grill. You're bound to get greasy at some point. What, you mean to tell me you can only be used for tuna tartare?
Yes, that is quite literally what the spatula is telling you. The literal point is that this spatula, which is highly expensive and semi-alive, thought it was going to be doing high-class food as opposed to Krabby Patties and resents the fact that its owner is now SpongeBob. That is the characterization this spatula was given. You're supposed to be a reviewer, but basically everything you've said so far in this review has been you repeating the basic premises of what's going on screen in a slightly sarcastic tone. Seriously, my biggest issue with this review is that Snake's analysis often comes off as incredibly shallow. It's not even reviewing so much as it's riffing, but it's not even really riffing because riffing implies that you're making some kind of commentary on what you're talking about. You guys remember that video from a couple years ago, the Bible read in a condescending voice by a 14-year-old atheist? This feels like that same kid is doing a reading of a plot synopsis from the SpongeBob wiki. Mind you, if that's actually some attempt at a style or something and that's just what you're going for, then I guess that's fine, but you need to communicate that to the viewers better. Or at least throw in more, I was going to say jokes, but I don't actually think you really had jokes in this video. Again, it's just you pointing out what's on screen. The point is, this is not an analysis, it's not a comedy piece, it's not really anything other than a guided walkthrough where the tour guide is slightly annoyed.
And that was all that glitters. Oh boy, this one. I'm rating it a 4 out of 10.
Wait, there's a numerical rating system now? When was this established? And for that matter, why a 4 out of 10? Don't get me wrong, you've been doing nothing but attempting to make fun of the episode throughout this entire review, so obviously you didn't like it. But the fact that you didn't actually come up with a single criticism of the episode outside of at the very beginning, it just makes this rating feel arbitrary.
It really is not at all very interesting. I appreciate how seriously they try to take such a ridiculous premise,
which you showed in the review by doing nothing but mocking the episode for that exact reason.
But the execution is just bad. All it is just SpongeBob being taught a lesson he didn't need to learn. It would have worked better if the episode was a bit more lighthearted and didn't make SpongeBob out to be some asshole simply for wanting to do his job properly. Or hell, make it so that SpongeBob willingly tossed out Spat in favor of a spatula for the express intent of trying to look cool or rich or some shit. Instead, all I'm getting from this is that you should never replace anything even if it doesn't work anymore. Which, now that I think about it, explains why they decided to put this episode out.
You see, that was pretty good analysis on Snake's part, and it shows me that Snake certainly can be a good reviewer. However, the main issue with this review is that, well, it didn't really feel like a review. Again, it felt like a guided walkthrough with a somewhat snarky tour guide. As an entertaining video, it's below average. As a review, well, it's terrible. Again, because so little of what you said actually felt like, well, reviewing. You didn't even really give your opinion on anything in particular until the very end. My recommendation is flesh out your points more when they're occurring in the episode if you insist on continuing to do this scene-by-scene style. If you can't do that, then just drop the scene-by-scene style and do more general reviews instead. Good night, and good luck.